Hello, everyone, and welcome to our review episode of The Wayward Dragons, where we talk about stuff we've read, stuff we've watched, if we've played any new games, and all that fun, dumb stuff. It's kind of a little break from our other episodes, where we
Yes.
typically talk about more serious things. I'm Johnny.
And I'm Kelsey. And welcome to this review episode. How was your Samhain? How was your little Samhain
It
there?
was nice. It was pretty chill. Nothing too crazy. How about yourself?
It was good. It was good. I made a pumpkin streusel loaf. So that is gone now. not even a week later. So yeah. Got some stuff done around the house. My husband worked, so it was a good moment for me to kind of have a moment to myself.
Does it feel weird saying husband yet?
No.
Or does it feel unweird, rather?
It feels weird that it's official because I was calling him my husband way before we got married just to get used to saying that. And I think he's been calling me his wife for at least 2 years. So,
That's fair.
So yeah, we got our pictures back on Samhain, which I thought was really funny.
Yeah.
Those turned out absolutely incredible. And it's funny, there are so many pictures of me and you and him just because of the hand fasting that we did. And it's so fun. There's almost like a play-by-play. Like she almost takes like a play-by-play.
I know she was complaining about the lighting and stuff, but a lot of those actually turned out really, really good. I'm sure there's like 3 times as many that turned out like shit that she didn't send you.
Oh, I know.
But
like I have a lot of pictures. And they all turned out fabulous. There are so many good ones to pick from. Not even all of them made it on Facebook. Like there were so many to pick from.
Yeah.
So yeah, there are so many good ones of like you and him from where you guys were standing up there, and then the 3 of us while we're doing the hand fasting and stuff. There are so many, and I wish I could post them all on Facebook, and I can't. like she sent me almost 800 pictures.
Holy shit!
yeah. It was like the reception alone is 300 pictures.
Whoa.
So I'm like, yeah, there was a lot of photos to pick from, and they were absolutely fabulous. And I was, yeah, we stayed up to almost midnight looking at pictures when they came in on Samhain, and I thought that was very appropriate for that day for them to come in. I thought that was funny.
Well, have you been reading anything or just looking at photos?
Okay. So I think I was telling you about the app Fable last time we did this, where it's like you can have like virtual book clubs, right? And it's like Goodreads. You can import your Goodreads and stuff. So I don't know if she has a Fable, but she's got an Instagram, and it's called the Morbid. Hold on, let me find it. It's like the Morbidly Curious Book Club. So for November, the book for November is The Black Angels. And I'm almost done with it. I've been listening to it as an audiobook. I think I only have like a couple hours left. But yeah, I've got 2.5 hours left. I'll finish that tomorrow. So it follows these Black nurses during the 20s, 30s, and 40s in a tuberculosis hospital in New York called Saraview. And it follows a group of Black Black nurses that were very pivotal in the research and the discovery of our tuberculosis vaccine.
Okay.
So it kind of follows their lives during that time of kind of before the civil rights movements kind of start, to where stuff's kind of desegregated in, but not quite. So the book is full of a lot of racial tension, but it's one of those books where it needs to be there for the demo, like the storyline of the book. You need to understand what these nurses were going through
Right.
during this time. I think it's very informative. I think those books are very interesting. Just to kind of figure out why people are the way that they are. I'm not. I just think how people think are very interesting. But I'm almost done with that for that book club. I'm an overachiever, so I feel the need to get the book read as soon as humanly possible.
I mean, who doesn't? Let's be real.
Like, yeah. So, and then like the Tanger, what the hell? I forget what book club. But like the other one is Murder in the Family, and I'm waiting for the library for that one. That one's gonna be a minute. I'm like 100 on that wait list. So yeah. Warnock's book club, they're reading Nettle and Bone. And that's really tiny. I have that from the book from the library. That's real tiny. But it's kind of like a fairy fae tale. I think you might like this one. I don't know. I'm only like a couple.
And Bone.
Nettle and Bone by T. Kingfisher. Because his book club's like sci-fi, so I haven't started that one yet. I'm almost done with that Black Angels one, but that it's really insightful. I think people should read those books in different points of their life. That gives you kind of a different perspective on how history was made, kind of thing. Because the point where I'm at is when Japan surrenders in the point of the timeline. So you kind of go through World War II or World War One, and then the Depression, and then World War II. And part of the thing that I didn't know was they would send POWs stateside to receive care. And part of the book is a Black nurse has to take care of a Nazi war POW.
Oh yeah, the U.S. loved the
So,
Nazis.
like hearing
let's
her,
be real here.
Yeah. So hearing that interaction, that is, I think that's it's a very interesting interaction to me. So, because he just like straight up like hacks a loogie at her face, and
yeah,
it's just kind of like whatever. Like
that's something that's actually not talked about a lot is the fact that like America had a Nazi political party.
Yeah.
They were up until certain things started happening and there was a shift in the war. The Nazis in the U.S. were, I mean, they weren't enemies. I mean, hell, what's his face, super big racist, Henry Ford, was a huge fan of Hitler.
Yeah, yeah. So you hear like that's part of the book is the public finding out that there are German Nazi POWs stateside, and their tax dollars are keeping them alive. So like that's I thought that was kind of interesting.
For all of our listeners here, I want you guys to go look up something. Operation Paperclip.
Operation Paperclip. I'm gonna have to remember that.
It is very much proof of why you should not trust the government. And it's not a conspiracy thing. It is something that actually happened. It has been declassified and confirmed by the U.S. government that this happened.
Yeah. So I'm almost done with that one. I like reading those inner perspective books of how things happen through history. it kind of makes you stop and think about what we're told, type thing. And I
Well,
also
yeah, because history is written by the victor, and the only
yes,
information that we get is what they want us to get.
yeah. Well, and I also think it's very informative to know how our history was made, especially when it's done by people of color. And I like reading those books just because I like the insight, because those things don't happen to me, but they've happened to other people, and I think that's incredible, and it's very insightful for me as a white female to kind of read stuff that happens to other people. I
Yeah.
just, in my little brain, I like hearing about what other people have gone through to get to where we've gotten now. The hospital actually that the book is written is no longer in use. So I think the rest of the book is how they find the cure and how the hospital eventually gets shut down, I think. And then, so when I find an author, I go like to the 9 foot end of the pool and start reading everything by them, because that's how my little brain likes to be. So I read Confessions on the 745 by Lisa Unger, because I read Ink and Bone by her last episode. So I'm guessing you know like what Strangers on a Train is.
Yes, that's a very popular
Trope. Okay. So this book is like Strangers on a Train meets misogyny, and they have a baby.
Well, that
Like,
sounds dumb and unpleasant.
like, so it's written from multiple viewpoints, and there's two different timelines, and you are not told that there are two different timelines. You have to figure that out, which is fine.
In certain aspects, I love that in books, but I also hate that in stuff.
Like,
So
yeah.
that kind of messed with me a lot. Spoiler alert for anyone who's not seen Westworld.
Yeah.
But that's skip ahead like, I don't know, like 3 minutes. But that's exactly what Westworld is.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
a big, like, they show you all this like it's happening at the same time, but it's not.
Yeah. So this woman finds out through her nanny cam that her husband is having an affair with the nanny. And she meets this woman on the 745 train in New York, and the lady she meets spills her guts, admitting that she's the other woman in another scenario. She's the mistress of, she's fucking her boss's husband, because her boss is the CEO and she's fucking her husband. And she admits this to the woman that with the nanny issue, and they go their separate ways. Well, then the nanny goes missing. And it's told from like it's like three different viewpoints, kind of. There's a couple people that kind of like blurb in for a couple seconds. But the main undercurrent is that husbands are horrible. They cheat on their wives. They beat their wives. And it's just so misogynistic. It was bad. Like eventually what happens? All right, fine. That's normal. It's a domestic thriller is what it's called, because it's kind of like domestic violence type thing.
It's like they tried to do a good for her story, and Strangers on a Train, like, these guys are assholes, so we're gonna kill
them. They're just horrible people. All men are horrible people, type thing.
See, I get that perspective when you've been through trauma, but here's the thing: is that not all men are horrible people. Not all people of any group are, you know, horrible or
Yeah.
monsters. And that's not to take away from anyone's experience.
Yeah.
You know, everyone's experience is valid. Your feelings are valid. But the thing is that not everyone is the individual that made you feel that way. And
Yes.
not everyone in a
Right.
particular group is like that.
Yeah.
You have to take it and rise above that. You have to realize that, I mean, it's good to address your traumas, but you can't, it's bad to constantly say I'm a victim and being the victim mentality and just include everyone in on as your aggressor when everyone
Yeah.
is not your aggressor.
Yeah. So that was the only thing I didn't like about it, was the kind of, it was almost like men shaming in a way. That's kind of how I thought about it. But also there was kind of like the, we as women kind of do this to ourselves because we let this happen type thing. That was kind of undercurrent too, that I didn't really
So
like.
it's simultaneously saying victim shaming and saying all men are monsters.
Yes. Yeah.
That's really stupid.
Yeah. The story was good. Of like, there's con artists, and I mean there's murder. But just, it's interesting. I'm gonna keep reading her other stuff. But I also I've noticed, like, the last series takes place in the Hollows, New York, and this one ends with her moving to Hollows, New York. So I'm kind of wondering if all her other novels kind of tie in to each other, kind of.
Probably.
Maybe because she only has a series called The Hollows and it takes place in the Hollows, but these aren't associated. That book wasn't associated with that series. This is a standalone. So
Huh.
I'm curious to see if these are like, it's kind of like one of that, like a Tim Burton thing where they're all quietly connected type thing
Or
that
like the
people like to do.
Pixar theory.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm curious to see if that's kind of how it is. I don't know. And then I'm almost done with my paranormal romance. So I've been reading that at work. Pirate is killing women in Savannah.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
so that's the one. That's the next one. Because I really want to read The Murder in the Family, I think is what it's called. Because the other book club I'm a part of is Coffee Shop Thrillers. And it's the book that they chose was Murder in the Family. And I've seen this where people like this book because in normal like murder mysteries, you're just kind of like, oh, there's a piece of paper and this is what the piece of paper says. Well, in the book, in this one, it's like you get to actually see the transcript of whatever evidence is presented. That's what's there.
That's
So
kind of cool.
so I'm really interested to read that one. That's what I got. So what do you got? What have you been doing? I've been trying not to be on my phone and watch TV too much, so I've been trying to read more. So
that's what
I got.
So I did a couple books. Most of them aren't really worth talking about. I'd say the big ones I'd like to note is actually the big one I'd like to note and talk about here, because I actually have something that I would love to talk about. So, Brave New World is the book. It's considered a classic. I actually read I think it's like the 75th anniversary or something like that.
Jesus.
Version of it.
Okay.
Hold on, let me look because I want to make sure I'm. Brave New World. Yeah, so it was originally released in 1973, or written in 1973, originally written in 1931 and published in 1932. So, of course, the language does not hold up.
Yeah.
Certain descriptors of certain ethnic groups and stuff like that does not hold up. This book itself is, in some places, it's compared to 1984.
I was like, that's kind of what it sounds like. I'm
But
reading it on Goodreads.
Yeah, it's sometimes it's compared to 1984, but it's very different in my like. So parts of it is heavily influenced by the eugenics culture,
Yeah.
but I don't think this was done as a warning per se. It might have been, but I have such mixed feelings about the book. Like, it was a decent book. It's just the language was very much of its time, and it really bothers me. But it was like the warnings of, relying too much on technology and relying too much
Yeah.
on, the screens in front of our faces and genetically modifying things, and how we need to stop, living so much in that and go back to more of a natural state, because we're losing the beauty of life in a lot of ways, which I think is important.
And it's very ironic that a lot of people in our generation are going back to our great grandparents' way of life.
Well, we're trying to, yeah.
Yeah. Less phones, less technology. Yes, it's helpful. Yes, it's nice, but like we need to kind of.
Technology has its place. Like, of course, we're recording a podcast here, podcast out there, but at the same time, there's much more to do. Our generation reads more than the previous generation. We have delved back into different sort of like mysterious, magical things from the past.
Yeah.
So it's very much what's the word I'm looking for? Cyclical.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see how it'll go. But I mean, it was. I recommend reading the book. You just have to look past the language. I would love for it to get for someone to take it. So I think we've had this conversation before, and based like from a meme or something, where I would love for people to cover other people's books. Haven't I had this conversation with you? I've had this conversation with other people.
No, I have those moments where it's like, I think I've talked about this with you, and it's somebody else.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
I don't think so.
But yeah, so I would love to see a cover of this where somebody just updates the language, where it's not as negative and condescending.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. There's a time and a place where certain books need to have it, and then there's time and a place where certain books just don't need to have that anymore. Sometimes those words need to be there for you to understand the context of what's going on.
Yeah.
Like the background and stuff. It's needs to be there. Because I think people wanted to do it with Huckleberry Finn. They wanted to take that language out.
Yeah, which I mean, I get what they want to take out, and I have mixed feelings about it. I think yes, it needs to be addressed, but at the same time, it is very much a item of its place and time, and I think that we would be taking away the history. I think there needs to be a conversation saying, "Hey, we don't use this language.
Yeah, we don't use it.
It's not language that should be used.
Yeah,
it's not language that should have ever been used."
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
But yeah. So that's really my
only
big
book
thing
of
for
note.
reading. Well, I mean, I had a couple others, and they're not really worth mentioning. I don't feel like I
Okay.
did, however, this is the thing I wanted to talk about.
Okay.
So most people who know me know I love anthology series when it comes to shows because I am a sucker for short stories.
Yeah. Yep.
And uh, while I am not really a fan of horror in general, I do love American Horror Story.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So I recently watched the entirety of American Horror Story NYC, and I've ranked them all multiple times. It's easily one of the top seasons in my opinion.
Is the NYC
Uh,
one?
yeah, so it deals with the AIDS epidemic,
Oh.
and so it is
Okay.
a lot of the cast is queer men and queer women,
Yeah.
but so it deals with like an actual horrific thing that happened that a lot of people were facing, and the way they do it and show the terror and what the terror did to people was just absolutely wonderful. And then just the sheer emotion at the end. It's not like the last episode really is just a homage and honor of everyone who passed from the sickness and who
Yeah.
still struggles with it. But it is absolutely amazing. Honestly, hands down, one of my top seasons.
Okay.
And Zachary Quintos is in it too, and he's not bad to look at. But that's the point.
That's not why we're
sense,
here.
yeah. So I highly recommend, if you are a fan or not a fan of horror, if you have any interest in that AIDS epidemic tragedy that completely destroyed, you know, if you're in any way, shape, or form an ally or queer or, anything like that, and you're interested to see how stuff like that affected people, it was moving. I will openly admit this. I cried in the final episode.
Oh.
And this is a fucking horror series.
I know, that's scary stuff. That's the previews of those shows scare the shit out of me.
Well, just the pure emotion that like you could feel it. The actors were absolutely amazing, like beyond belief amazing.
Yeah.
So I highly recommend that even if you don't watch any other seasons of American Horror Story, because each season is a different story, and there's one season that ties a bunch of the other seasons together, but none of that's really relevant to watch this. Just if you watch American Horror Story New York City, honestly, it's absolutely beautifully done, and just the imagery and the representation they do, and without giving any spoilers away, because I don't want to spoil anything. When you understand a certain image they're using, in correlation with the AIDS virus, it makes it that much deeper. I honestly want to rewatch it just knowing what I know.
Yeah.
Just so I can appreciate it.
Yeah. Sometimes you have to. Sometimes you have to rewatch stuff. Because then you catch other things.
Well, and typically I'm not one that rewatches stuff anyways. But yeah, no, it's something that I would definitely, that season, something I'd definitely sit down and rewatch.
Yeah,
but,
for sure.
I think that is about all I have. I've been working and not much else, so yeah, that's my reviews for stuff.
Okay.
So if you guys want to learn about chakras, I would suggest listening to our last two episodes. The first of which Kelsey kind of goes over what chakras are and
Yep.
starts at the 7th chakra.
Because I like to fuck shit up.
And I found out something really interesting that's like a recent thing that I'll talk about a little bit, or talked about a little bit rather.
Yeah.
I was just to record these out of order. Last episode, and then Kelsey, because I'll be dropping down doing the first 3 chakras, and then Kelsey's going to be coming back and doing the
last 3.
Middle 3? The
last
4th,
3.
5th, and 6th.
Like,
5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 7.
Yeah.
Anyways, so we're all over the place. But yeah, so
That's
definitely
normal.
check it out.
Yeah.
So, don't forget to like, rate, review, subscribe.
Tell a friend. Rate and review on iTunes or wherever you listen.
Yeah, so I actually found out something.
Day.
Yeah, it has been. I found out something recently. Apparently, iTunes actually, if you rate us on iTunes,
mm-hmm.
First off, we only accept like 4 or 5 star ratings. Don't give us
anything else.
Any low shit. You can keep that to yourself. Secondly, apparently iTunes actually uses those ratings to bring up and recommend the podcast to other people. So even if you, if you, the best thing you can do for us probably is to, obviously refer us, but definitely rate us, because the more rating we get, the more of a chance more people will listen, and the more and more people listen, the more we can do this, and the better our show can get.
Yeah. Yep. For sure. We just want to produce the best. Now that I have the time to make that happen.
Yep.
Yeah.
So until then, I'm Johnny.
And I'm Kelsey.
Bye.
Bye.